people who are not able to join us. I would like to thank everyone for being here, for showing your interest in the incentive fund. Um, I would like to first present myself. I'm Anke van der Velde. I work as a senior partnership and liaison officer at IOM Belgium and Luxembourg. So I manage the partnerships for our country office. And I also, together with Jana, who could not be present here today, I'm managing and implementing the CONEX project of IOM. Now, IOM is the International Organization for Migration. We are a UN agency, so an agency of the United Nations, and we actually work in almost all countries in the world to really promote safe and orderly migration that respect human dignity for the benefit of all. And also in Belgium, we are an operational agency who implements projects such as labor mobility, but also protection of migrants, diaspora engagement, social inclusion, and many more projects. So today we're here together for the incentive fund, which is part of the CONEX project. The CONEX project is financed by FIDASIL. FIDASIL is a federal agency for the reception of asylum seekers. And so today I would like to present to you, of course, a little bit the CONEX project, but also everything you need to know about the incentive fund. We will basically go through the template, the submission form, and I will also explain a little bit the trajectory of a project that is being chosen under the incentive fund. So I will explain a little bit the roles and responsibilities of selected projects. And of course, at the end of the session, I will also give a little bit of time for you to ask me questions, and I will do my very best to respond to them. If you have questions, oh my God, it's already starting. Excuse me. If you have questions in the meantime, please do not hesitate to write them down or to use the chat. And then at the end, I will be able to take your questions. Okay, so first of all, very briefly wanted to present you the CONEX project. Now, the CONEX project is really framed within a bigger, within the bigger program, the bigger CONEX program of FIDASIL, which FIDASIL then implements with a couple of partner organizations like IOM and Caritas, but also with cities like Anderlecht, Antwerp, Ghent, Charleroi, etc. Now, each of us, we have our own annual recurring project with our own priorities, with our own emphasis. And now for IOM's CONEX project in 2025, we will contribute to properly reaching, informing, and offering services to migrants in vulnerable situations, especially those residing outside of the formal reception network, to guarantee the protection of their basic rights and their orientation to a sustainable future. And this is in line with the mission of the CONEX program of FIDASIL. Now, very briefly, I want to present to you the activities that we have planned for 2025. Obviously, we will have the incentive fund for which you're here today. We will also be providing training and info sessions for partner organizations or for those organizations that express their interest through our training catalog submission form. We will also be able to guide a little bit exchanges, good practice exchanges between organizations and cities in Belgium, but also with other countries in the EU. We will be assessing communication channels used by migrants in Belgium to access information or to access protection services. And then last but not least, a very innovative activity that we will launch this year as well is the training of diaspora community leaders on migrant protection and assistance. More information about the last activity will be shared soon. Okay, the incentive fund. We're all here today to get more information about the incentive fund. So the objective of this year's incentive fund is to support civil society organizations and public services in setting up or continuing innovative community-based activities in Belgium linked to the wide range of protection tools for migrants. Now, so this call is specifically for civil society organizations and public services that are based in Belgium and active and operational in 2025. That's been registered and has a legal identity with the Belgian government. Organizations need to demonstrate experience in supporting migrants in precarious administrative situations. Need to be willing to implement a project in 2025. That's quite important because our incentive fund only funds projects that take place in 2025, and organizations need to be willing to contribute staff and time to the implementation of the activities. Now, each year we have some thematic priorities. This year in 2025, we have identified 4 thematic priorities that are, of course, all linked to the broader mission of the IOM CONEX project. So the first priority is to reach and inform migrants correctly and comprehensively about basic rights, different processes, and available services for migrants in Belgium. A second priority is to raise awareness with migrant communities in Belgium on available support and protection tools through community-based activities. Think of a football tournament or cooking workshops where you also use the situation, use this community-based activity to raise awareness about available support for them. A third thematic priority is to offer legal, administrative, and psychosocial support to migrants, especially those in vulnerable situations, to help navigate precarious administrative situations and orient them towards a sustainable future, whether it's in Belgium, in their country of origin, or elsewhere. And then the fourth priority is to address capacity gaps and vulnerabilities that hinder migrants' access to protection services or to information on those services, and orientation to a sustainable future. So those are the 4 thematic priorities. In the submission form, we will also ask you to indicate which of these thematic priorities your project would like to contribute to. And in the next slide, I've listed some examples of activities, but just know that this is not an exhaustive list. We definitely recommend you to be innovative, and as long as it fits the thematic priorities, I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was disconnected, but I also started up my my hotspot in case my internet doesn't work. So I think you've had the time now to have a look at the example activities. So organizations that would like to I don't know, prepare info sessions on access to basic rights are, of course, more than welcome to apply, but also those organizations that, for example, have an innovative methodology that, I don't know, offer digital literacy classes to migrants in vulnerable situations. Those are the type of activities that would definitely fall within the thematic priorities. Maybe a bit more important are the activities that will not be funded. So research projects, so projects that are purely research, purely data collection will not be funded. Also, activities that take place outside of Belgium will not be funded. Activities that solely focus on providing migrants with vocational trainings will also not be supported. So it could be, for example, a vocational training as a tool to inform migrants about their rights, like a cooking workshop or I don't know, a workshop to become a barista, but you use basically that vocational training to get people together to inform them about procedures, about basic rights. So it's a bit, the distinction is important. So activities that have the vocational training as an end goal will not be funded. Of course, activities that are not related to one of the above mentioned or before mentioned thematic priorities, and activities that do not directly benefit migrants in precarious administrative situations residing outside of a formal reception structure will not be funded. And this last point actually brings me to the next slide, where I want to tell you a bit more about the target audience for the incentive fund. Or the target audience that we expect partners to have. So it is important that participating organizations in the project that they put forward directly reach migrants residing in Belgium. So that's important. And we ask you to have a minimum minimum 50% of the population that you target should be migrants in precarious administrative situations residing outside of the formal reception structure in Belgium, or migrants that are very difficult to reach. So think about people without a residence permit, applicants for international protection that are basically residing outside of FIDASIL centers or Red Cross centers, migrants in transit, but also persons with a temporary residence permit, people living in a very, very small, like migrants living in a very small village that have really difficulty accessing information. Those are all people that would fall within that target audience. This is important because it will also be a question in your submission form, whether you will reach the 50% of the set target population. Budget's very important. So the available budget for 2025 is 40,000 euros. Each project will have, so we will finance a maximum of 6 projects. Why? Because that is just the maximum that Jana and I can guide, can oversee, can monitor. So we see that 6 is really for us the limit. But each project can ask between 2,000 and 8,000 euros. So also depending on, how much projects ask, it might even be less than 6 projects that are selected. It kind of depends on whether the selected projects, how much they ask, and then based on that, we see how much budget is available. So the costs that are eligible are actually costs that are directly related to your activities. So think of personnel costs, but also volunteer fees. We know that a lot of organizations work with volunteers. So volunteer fees are also eligible costs. material costs. Think about, renting a venue or that you need for your project activity, but also the invoices of service providers. Imagine if you have a training facilitator, or you need to use a translation service, or you need to work with an external accountant to help you with the financial reporting. Those are all costs that are eligible. Catering, for example, you organize an info session, you want to foresee some cookies, those are eligible costs. Printing of flyers, communication material, transportation costs. Imagine if you want to do your activities in a small village in Belgium, of course, we're able to reimburse the travel costs to that village, for example. Structural operational costs cannot exceed 7% of the requested budget. So we're also able to what we call structure to finance structural costs. So imagine the desk that you need to work, the internet that you need, electricity, the phone bill, for example, that your project officer uses. Those are also costs that we can cover, but it cannot exceed over 7% of the budget that you request. Here is an overview of the projects of 2024. I invite you to go to our website to have a look, to get inspired. They were amazing projects. They did really good work. But just keeping in mind that the thematic priorities of last year were different than this year's thematic priorities. So you may actually see some projects that maybe would not be funded anymore this year. So they can be an inspiration, but keep in mind the thematic priorities of this year. I'm putting in the chat the link to our webpage where you can find all of the information about the CONEX project, but also you could click on the info sheets or to access the info sheets of the projects of 2024. And if you scroll down, you can also find the call document, the template of the submission form, and we will also post, for example, extra information, new questions that come up. We will update the frequently asked questions. So voila, this is actually all of the essential information that you need about the incentive fund. Now, before, I want to make sure that you understand also what the submission template looks like. So I wanted to take the time to run through the submission template so that you, of course, apologies, 1 second. I see there's someone at the door. 1 second, please. Apologies. So important here is to note that the submission template has a word limit. So please respect as much as possible the word limit, because we expect quite a bit of organizations to apply, and otherwise we will need to go through 60 pages. So please respect the word limit. The submission template consists of 2 sections. The first section that you see here is the overview of your project ID. So we ask here to put your name, put the title of your project, the geographical coverage, so in which cities will you organize the activities, or do you plan to organize the activities? Or maybe region. Imagine you want to really focus on the Walloon region. That is something that you can put here. We also ask you to specify the thematic priority, linked to those 4 thematic priorities. We also ask you to give us an estimation of the beneficiaries or of the target population that you aim to assist, so both directly and indirectly. So imagine you plan to organize X amount of info sessions and you plan to reach like 100 migrants in, I don't know, 100 transit migrants. Then we ask you to specify here that you will be reaching 100 migrants in transit, for example. The project duration, of course, keeping in mind that the project needs to be implemented before the end of this year, and the budget. So the budget, the amount that you ask from us as IOM under the incentive fund, but maybe the project will also be have activities that will be financed by other donors. You can always put it here as well, the amount that other donors put into the project. Voilà. The second section is really the description of the project. So we're really trying to delve into here your project ID. So we ask you to describe the problem statement, to give an overview of the problem that you would like to address, what are the barriers, what are the challenges that you see, and also what you want to reach with the project. So the main objectives. We also ask you to describe the target group, and also how you will reach that target group. So maybe your organization is already directly working with the target group, or maybe you will have to work with other partners to identify your target audience. So we ask you to clarify it here. And then here we also ask you to confirm that your project activities will reach at least 50% of the targeted population. In 2.3, we ask you to describe your methodologies, your methodology or the activities that you would like to implement to achieve the results. So think of, I will prepare some flyers. I will create a website where migrants can find all of the information, or I will elaborate a tool on digital literacy. So that is a little bit what we're looking for here. So really the methodology and the way that you want to achieve your goal. In the next slide, so the 2.4 really focuses on the results. So it's a little bit of a preliminary results matrix that we ask here. So what are the immediate results that you wish to have after the project activities? But we also ask you to try to estimate for each of the gray areas here, how much people you will reach. So how many migrants do you expect to reach with an info session? How many flyers do you think you will need? Of course, these are just example indicators, like we call them. But if they're not relevant for your project activity, you, of course, don't need to fill them out. Important to note is that if your organization is selected, that we will ask you to fill out a detailed results matrix. So a matrix where we ask you to fill out the indicators, where we ask you to think of activities, outputs, outcomes, etc. But IOM will be there. We will be there to help you with that detailed results matrix. But I think at this stage, it's already important for each organization to kind of think about what do you really, what are your main results? What are the main things that you want to reach? And to already think about some of the indicators that will help you to measure your progress. Okay, in the section or in the subsection 2.5, we ask you to describe a little bit your experience with the problem, with the target audience, and with the activities. And in the next subsection, we also ask you, to the extent possible, which of your staff members will be working on the activities, and maybe a little bit of background on why that staff member is the ideal person to work on the project. Some of you may involve partners, may involve other stakeholders. In the subsection 2.7, we ask you to describe, in case you're really going for a partnership, we ask you to describe the role of you, of your organization, and of your partner organization. Of course, this is optional. Not everybody works with partner organizations, but we do ask every organization to identify key stakeholders, key actors that may play a role in the project. So again, if you will organize some info sessions, maybe you would need facilitators. Which actors are you thinking of? Are you thinking of, for example, IOM to give an info session on voluntary return or on protection of migrants within the LGBTQI community? So these are a little bit the stakeholders that we like you to map and to already think about. For your information, proposals submitted by or in collaboration with grassroots, diaspora, or migrant-led organizations will be evaluated more positively. So even those organizations that do not meet the criteria, are not diaspora or migrant-led, we think it's a great opportunity to maybe seek a partnership or seek collaboration with migrant and diaspora organizations. And finally, the timeline and the budgets. As said before, your project needs to be completed by December 2025. So we ask you very preliminary to let us know when you would plan certain activities. Selected organizations will be asked to fill out a more detailed timeline, indicating which info sessions will take place in which months. We ask you to do a cost estimation. So how much will the project cost? How much will you ask from IOM? How much is dedicated to staff costs and how much is dedicated to operational costs? And we also knew this year, we also ask you to give a bit of information about your accountancy system. So do you have someone who within your team that is experienced in accounting, or will you work, for example, with an external accountancy firm? You can describe that here in this section. Voilà, that is the submission template. It's basically once you fill it out, we will ask you to have the person in charge of the project or in charge of the organization to sign the submission template and to submit it through email to my colleague Kiana. So you can find her email here. The application can be submitted in Dutch, French, or English. We speak the 3 languages, so please feel free to submit it in any of those 3 languages. But the format needs to be this submission form only. And I really would like to emphasize that all of the mandatory fields need to be filled out, because if not, your submission will be rejected. Your submission will also be rejected if you submit later than the deadline being Sunday, the 23rd of February. Okay, so this is it for the submission template. I see that someone has already raised their hands. Please go ahead.
It's fine. I can wait until the end. No problem. We just
You sure?
about the finance. Yeah, yeah, sure. No
Okay,
problem.
okay, okay. Because we have some information about the finance part. Um, okay, selection procedure, very important. We want to be very transparent about our selection procedure. So we will have a committee of a selection committee, basically, who will each individually, according to these 5 selection criteria that are weighted. So some selection criteria, as you can see, will weigh a little bit more in our selection than others. So based on these selection criteria, we will give points to each project. And a maximum of 6 projects will be selected. And we will also put 2 to 4 projects on a reserve list. In the week of the 17th of March, we will communicate the final decision. So the decision whether your project was selected, was put on the reserve list, or was rejected. And then we will, with the selected projects, we will start the full submission process. So they will be asked to prepare a full submission package. They will be asked to fill out a results and a risk matrix. We will foresee you with the template, also a detailed budget, for which we will also provide you with a template and the detailed timeline. Based on this process, we will be able to see if we can still finance some projects on the reserve list. The kickoff conference, I will give a bit more information later on, but we will have a kickoff conference for all applying organizations on the 22nd of March. But for those projects that are selected, this kickoff conference is mandatory because it will be part of your onboarding process. So, by the way, I recommend you to have a close look again at the selection criteria, because then you can see what will be taken into account in our grading process. So this is basically the standard trajectory of a selected project. So first, the organization will need to submit on time. We'll go through the selection procedure. Will get the news that they are selected and get the grant. We will prepare the submission package and sign the contract probably around the 1st of April. We will then have the onboarding process where we will have a meeting to explain a little bit in terms of visibility, in terms of reporting. So it will be more of an in-depth workshop for the selected projects. Then you will be implementing and monitoring your activities. And then there will be the evaluation and the final reporting. This is basically kind of a timeline in terms of project management, what we expect the partner. So there is the kickoff conference, the onboarding meeting, and the contractual phase which will take place in March and April. So we really ask organizations to be on standby during the contracting phase, because it's quite a bit of back and forth in terms of the documents that we need from you to be able to set up the contract. In July and August, we will set a meeting with you, a midterm meeting, to assess a little bit together how your project is progressing, if you have encountered any difficulties, any challenges, but also to learn from maybe some good practices, some lessons learned, and so on. New this year is that we will also offer a reporting workshop ahead of the final reporting phase. so that everybody, all of the finance officers or the accountants and the project managers are really well aware of the roles and responsibilities. And then in November, December, we will have the final reporting and the evaluation meeting. So this is a little bit what we ask from our partners in terms of engagement. And then in terms of reporting and payments, we require each organization that is selected to submit a final narrative report, a final financial report, and all of the supporting documents. So think about invoices, think about tickets that you have when you bought snacks or food. So these will need to be submitted by December, and we will supply you, of course, with the templates necessary to be able to elaborate the narrative report and the financial report. Now, in terms of payments, so it's important to note that we only pay after activities occurred, so after costs occurred, so we don't do pre-financing. However, we note that smaller organizations may not have enough resources to pre-finance like an amount of 8,000 euros. So we have a payment system of interim reimbursements. So once you have incurred a minimum of 1,000 euros in costs, you can submit a request for reimbursement. So you will have to, based on the template that we will provide you, submit an interim financial report, a short narrative report. So it's just like a very short paragraph on what you have done. And of course, submit the supporting documents. The full reimbursement will be done after the submission of the final narrative and financial report, together with the supporting documents. So our finance team will then go through the report, see if the costs are eligible, and then we'll, of course, reimburse you the costs. Almost there. But I saved the best for last, which is the kickoff conference. So please write it down in your agenda. Based on the feedback that we received from our incentive fund partners of 2024, we decided to organize this year a kickoff conference, which basically has two main objectives. First of all, it's a networking opportunity for all organizations that applied for the incentive fund to get to know each other, to get to know other experts, but also it's also a way for you to strengthen your capacities, because we will be providing workshops related to project management, migrant protection, financial management, etc. And it will also be a good opportunity to get to know the projects that are selected. Important here is that it's for all organizations that apply, so not only those that are selected, but also those that were not successful. So please note it down in your agenda, and we really hope that we will be able to welcome you in Brussels. When you submit your proposal to Jana, Jana will reply with a mail of good receipt, and she will also share the registration form for this kickoff conference. Okay, enough for me. I am happy to take any questions that you may have. In the meantime, I'm also referring again to the link that I shared in the chat, where you can also find frequently asked questions, the submission form, etc. But go ahead.
Hi, I am Rasha from the Women Refugee Committee. It's a committee within the Umbrella Refugee Committee, if you might know.
Yes.
We don't have a bank account, but the URC has a bank account. Since we are part of the URC, is it okay to put the URC bank account details?
Yes. Um, it's
Or is
definitely
it pay?
possible.
Is it payment? You need a bank account. That's my question as well. Is do you need a bank account?
Yes, you would need a bank account and VAT, a tax number,
We have, we
TVA.
have, we have,
Okay,
we have a proper bank account for SPL, but for the URC.
yeah. No, so what we will probably do, but I would need to check with my finance team, we'll probably sign the contract then with URC. And then they basically it's then a mutual understanding between the two of you. So we try not to get involved in that, but then it will be a mutual understanding between the two of you that you will be implementing the activities, that you will be providing them with the costs, that you will be providing them with the invoices that they then can request
All right. Okay.
reimbursement to us. Yeah,
So internally we'll coordinate with the URC with Wali, but then when we will apply in the name of the URC.
you can apply.
Internally we will take it over,
Yeah,
but on the paper it's URC.
yeah. So what we've done, so we've had a situation like that last year. Basically, we signed a contract with one organization, but both, actually, it was another organization um, doing most of the work.
Mm-hmm,
So they
mm-hmm,
basically applied together. So the name of the organization,
mm-hmm.
you can put URC and Women Refugee Committee,
All
but we
right.
will sign the contract with URC.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
Another question. If we come back to the financing for
Yeah.
the reporting system. So basically, only we will be able to have we will be spending €1,000, and we will submit the report,
Yeah.
and then we will get it back.
Yes. Exactly.
But then we have to pay it to the staff, or I mean we have to reimburse the concerned people,
Yeah.
and then we have as well to spend, let's say if I have to, let's flyers, how I will do that. I We don't have funding for
Yeah.
that.
So we yeah, it's a bit of a difficult question, of course, because most organizations have a little bit of a buffer. So we do ask for the costs to occur before you ask paying back. But I think last year we had a situation that I would need to check. I would need to come back if it's possible to do pre-financing completely. But normally it's not
Yeah, but
possible.
it's not. Yeah, but it's not because we are really working volunteers since
Yeah,
2019, and literally in the URC bank account, €52. So I'm just saying that there is no money we could take from and then wait to the final reimbursement.
yeah. I will.
Especially if you have a transportation, you have a refugee volunteers as well, because we involve a lot of refugees with us. So as well,
Yeah,
their financial system and then the best. So when they want to take a transportation, when they want to do any stuff, so this is just an issue that we don't have another, let's say, €6,000 to spend, and then
mm-hmm.
to submission the final financial report. That's not possible for. I'm just saying that if there is a way that
Mm-hmm.
we could um, overcome this issue.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a very valid concern. We are not able to pre-finance. I can check with the finance officers how we've done it, because I remember that for one organization, um, they still had to pay a service provider, and they were able to give us the invoice before it was actually paid. But I think this was I think it was really an exception. Now, also note that maybe in this case it might be good for you to partner up with an organization with more financial stability, because it is one of the criteria. So IOM does, and that's why we put organizations also on the reserve list, because every selected project, every selected organization will go through a due diligence phase with IOM. And one of the things is that there needs to be at least a minimum amount of financial viability of the organization. So I think in your case, and I can really link you up with some very good women organizations, or organizations that work with migrant women as well. I would say in this case it might be best to partner up with another organization that is maybe a little bit more that has a bit more financial stability. Yeah. And that way you can decide amongst yourself how much each partner gets in the budget.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
that's we can figure out how to do that. Do you have an last question? I know that Monica wants to ask have a question. Can we have an example about the projects that submitted?
Last year,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, one of your coworkers, Wally, got a very good project. But like I said, the priorities were a bit different last year. So I think you know Nadu, because it's
Yeah, yeah, of
led
course. Yeah,
by
yeah. I've
Wally.
been I've been
Um,
in their sessions.
yeah, he was so NADA was providing info sessions to asylum seekers in reception facilities
Yep.
on basic rights, procedures, etc. Now, for example, this project of NADU would not be selected under these thematic priorities, because this year we focus on those that are outside of formal reception structures. Um, Sudan Action Group is actually a very good example. They gave info sessions on a lot of different topics: housing, labor, I mean, gender-based violence, to Sudanese migrants in Belgium. And a lot of them were in an irregular situation, or in a with temporary residence permit. So that is actually a really nice example.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Monica?
Hello, so I'm Monica from also the Umbrella Refugee Committee, and I have a question about the ceiling in terms of numbers of projects that can be submitted from the same organization. This is somewhat in connection with Rasha's question, since we have 9 separate committees and then the umbrella also works separately. So would we have a ceiling, a limit of the number of projects? No.
No.
Okay.
No, you can submit as many as you want. And we will, normally what we do is we only select one of each organization. But I think that's why it's important for you, in name of the organization, in that section, that you clarify that it is this refugee committee under the umbrella refugee committee. Because that way, imagine if two projects by refugee committees are very strong and would be selected. Normally, we would then only pick one, but because we then know that it's actually different committees that will maybe have the bank account of the URC, then we can still consider having 2 or 3 of the committees as projects.
I see, perfect. So then the name is enough differentiation. Perfect. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Any other questions? No? Okay, great. No, thank you so much for being here today, for being interested in the incentive funds. We obviously look forward to receiving your proposal. We expect a lot of proposals, so we'll have a lot of work going through the proposals. But we're very excited that so many organizations are eager to submit something, and it only shows the importance. Wait, I see one more in the chat. Thanks a lot. Could you please highlight once again the target audience, particularly? Blah, blah, blah. Yes. Okay, I'll quickly go back to the slide on the target audience. Yeah. So the target audience for the projects are migrants in precarious administrative situations residing outside of formal shelters, like Fidazil shelters or Croix Rouge, Red Cross. So it's really like maybe the ones that live in squats or live in more private owned, like private funded reception structures. So indeed, would asylum seekers who applied for asylum but could not get a shelter be considered among these 50%? Yes, they will be considered. We also put 50% because we know that it's not always easy for you to know what the administrative situation of migrants is. So we put 50% because we really want to stimulate organizations to really reach those that are most vulnerable, that are in most precarious situations, that are most difficult to reach. So that's why we put 50% as a threshold. Voilà, I hope that answered your question. I will also be sending out an email after this, after the info session, with all of the templates for you, and really looking forward to reading your proposals. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, Anke. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.